Hey guys, Danny with Danny Gustin Fitness Podcast here. Thank you guys for being with us today. Our guest today is Brian Quick, the one and only, a Naperville classic, Captain Six-Pack himself. Brian is the head coach at Bennett Academy, Naperville Private High School, or Lyle?
It's in Lyle, actually, yeah.
It's in Lyle. And anyways, Brian is actually my introduction to fitness. It kind of occurred to me recently that that's the case. But Brian is a lifelong fitness enthusiast. He has had an interesting path in that he kind of caught his swing later into his 20s of finally realizing his potential with fitness and pursued different things like bodybuilding, hockey, track, eventually becoming a track head coach at the school we just mentioned. And Brian has a lot of insights from the standpoint of mindset, aging, experience, and just how to not only excel in fitness, but to excel in life. And if you tune in and stick around till the end, you might see his six-pack for yourself. So
What?
So thank you guys so much for being with us today. I know you guys are going to love it.
Woo!
Nice. We did it.
Dylan, you.
You son of a bitch. We're off to a great start.
Yeah, see?
So Brian, thank you so much for coming on.
My great pleasure to be here, sir.
Yeah, we were just talking about the greats, Michael Jordan, the Governator.
Yeah, I mean,
Brian,
we're
show
here
everybody
right
the
for all
shirt.
this stuff, right? The Governator's here.
Yeah, so people are going to find out today that you were doing bodybuilding back in your younger years.
I did.
Is this more than just a shirt to you? Did Arnold play any sort of, was he an inspiration for you at any point?
Oh, certainly. I mean, back in 70s, and I grew up in 60s and 70s. 70s, I started, especially middle 70s, was a teenager, so that's when Pumping Iron came out, 77 or so. Yeah. I mean, how could you not like that, you know? Yeah. And I've always been fascinated with, I've always had a great love of sports. I've always loved working out, I mean, since I was a little kid, and I'm very grateful for that because that still carries over into my adult life of today. But, yeah, I mean, watching Arnold and all his friends, Ed Corney and Franco Columbu and all those guys. I mean, it was like, we've talked about it before, the golden age of bodybuilding.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's when it was really awesome. And, Arnold was, he's Arnold.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, all those Olympia titles and then all the other things he did afterwards, the acting, the politics. I mean, that was a guy that was so uberly driven that how could you not have that rub off on you in some way, shape, or form,
Absolutely.
And I think that's part of what his deal was inspiring people a little bit. And he certainly inspired, I think, a whole generation of certainly young men to, take up weight training. And I got to say, I'm one of them.
Yeah.
And still at it at, almost 64. So, that's the fun part about it.
Dude, that's amazing. And I think that everything he pretty much touched turned to gold. I mean, for the most part, maybe other than his marriage. Not to throw shade.
We can all make mistakes.
We all make mistakes.
Yeah, see, it's not a perfect life.
Exactly. But I mean, if you think about it, he accomplished basically multiple lifetimes worth of success, right? American politics, governor, movie star, bodybuilder. But why do you, just for maybe those who don't think of bodybuilding that way, right? Not that we're a gym based around bodybuilding, but we call it the golden age of bodybuilding. And I say that because when you look back in the 70s, 60s, and prior, you'd see a guy's physique and they may look jacked and huge,
right?
But there's a part of me that I'd look at that and go, okay, would it be too bad to look like that, right? I mean, they have just these awesome masculine physiques, right?
Right, yep.
Where now it's almost like just these huge
cartoonish
mass monsters,
almost,
right? The proportions don't seem to be there, and
it's a different ball game now. And I have to say, not following bodybuilding at all. I don't know who's king or anything anymore.
I don't
I kind of got out of it probably the 90s, somewhere along the line. I'd say the 80s was my heyday. But and it's the performance enhancing drugs, they're there. And it's not just the steroids. There's probably a heck of a lot more stuff going on then. And even back in Arnold's day, he would tell you, did he take them? Yeah.
Yeah.
He took them. He was
Yeah.
honest about it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't to the extent probably of today. I mean, he would take them through a cycle of getting ready for a show.
Yeah.
But then after that, done, and bodybuilding is a strange sport, and it's hard. I've done a couple of shows when I was younger. It's hard work, and it's mostly the dieting and all that, which is really difficult. But to be able to, do those things, it takes a lot of discipline.
Yeah.
But now it's, these guys, to your point, are just so big. I mean, they look like cartoon characters to me, and it's not the same. I mean, I think Arnold would probably look pretty small compared to what these guys look like nowadays.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't. It doesn't appeal to me. I mean, it's impressive. Don't get me wrong.
No doubt.
But how much drugs and stuff are you using? And
and for what, right?
Yeah, and hey, it's their living. They're trying to make a living at it. I think money is probably better for these people doing these things now than it used to be.
Yeah, I could see that, especially even with social media and the internet. I'm sure it's easier for these guys to get sponsors and things like that.
Yeah.
But hey, bodybuilding's the past for you. So let's focus on something more present.
Sure.
You have a famous speech when you start your track practices at Bennett, right? And so you are the head coach at Benedictine.
Bennett Academy.
Bennett Academy High School. Yep.
Benedictine's right across the street, the college.
university.
I'm at Bennett Academy, so I'm the boys' head track coach there.
Yeah,
and have been for, this is going on year 10.
That's awesome.
And then I've been there 17 years total. So, it's something I talk about first meeting of the year, because we'll start third week in January. And, I'm very honest about myself when I'm talking to my athletes, and all these kids are 14 to 18 years old. I was 14 to 18 at one point.
Yeah.
And I'm in this position now to where I'm really more of I'm a coach, but I'm also a mentor, and trying to steer people in a direction to create really great human beings. I mean, ultimately that's what it is. It's more than just teaching a kid how to be faster or throw a shot put farther or jump higher or whatever. There's so much to athletics. And, inevitably somebody new to the team asked, "Hey, coach, you must have been this great athlete in high school, and where'd you go to college and all this?" I go, I said I could have been, but I wasn't. And I am very serious to them, and I tell them I underachieved in high school. I did not live up to potential I had academically. Look, I wasn't going to be a Rhodes Scholar or anything, but I could have done better. And athletically, I have athletic ability. I still have it, but I didn't live up to that potential I had then. And I had some regrets when I got into my 20s. And, I tell them about that. And it was bodybuilding that got me going in a direction to, they were talking about Arnold earlier, I was never going to be a Mr. Olympia.
Yeah, but
I knew that.
We'll have to, if you, with your permission, we'll have to maybe edit that picture of young you. This guy was an animal. Oh man.
Yeah, that was a different body ago. That was a while ago, but
that's how you that's how you started almost, taking this moment of regret, or maybe chapter of regret. And
good way to
turn
put
it around a little bit.
Yeah, because I was like, man, what if I really dedicated myself to something? Because I got to say, I dabbled in sports. I mean, I played basketball, I ran track, but by the time I got to junior, senior year, I started to major more in cars and girls. Which isn't all bad, because I still got the car. I got a 68 GTO. I still got that.
That's
and
awesome.
I married the girl. So, it's not all bad.
Yeah. Have you been with Jill since high school?
Yeah.
Oh, no way.
1979 we met.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we've
high school sweethearts.
known each other for 45 years. We've just hit 40 years of marriage back in September. So
no kidding.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation right there. But it's been really great.
Yeah.
So to be able to, tell these kids this story, because I'm working with all these brainiacs at Bennett, you know, and everybody's going to college. That's what they're there for.
Yeah.
I never went to college,
Yeah.
you know, and if I would have, it would have been a big waste of time. So the one redeeming quality I did have, I was a hard worker, especially when it comes to physical work.
Yeah.
So I actually started working for the city of Naperville right out of high school. They put me at their wastewater treatment plant. And then I stayed for the next 36 years.
Dang.
Went from a summer kid to a wastewater treatment operator to a field supervisor my last 12 years. But I've been retired almost 10 years now, which is kind of
Yeah.
like, what?
Yeah. And how
You know?
awesome is that to retire? That's one of the benefits I would imagine working for the city, right? Is retiring at 50.
55. I had the right years of the pension to leave without a penalty. So I knew what my expiration date was. January 14th, 2016, I was done.
Yeah.
And I was done. And it was kind of ironic. At that time, the head coaching job opened up at Bennett. So I just kind of slid right in.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was kind of
It's like it was meant to be.
pretty much.
So why do you think, I'm sure there's different reasons, but why do you think, you know, you mentioned that you were into cars and girls, but,
Right.
you know, but obviously there was maybe something in the background there, a whisper saying, hey man, you have more potential with these
Yep.
various things. Why do you think you underachieved in high school? Because I'm also someone who certainly did that, right?
Yeah.
And so why do you feel you underachieved in high school?
Yeah, it's just what I didn't have the mental maturity.
Yeah.
You know, I had that dedication in spurts. Like I had it in periods of time when I was, you know, running track or playing basketball. You know, I was never the top person. You know, I was never the starting guy on the basketball team. And it was just one of those things I didn't have the mental maturity. I wasn't mature enough.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, it's kind of the funny thing. You never know when that's going to hit
Yeah,
or will it ever?
You hope so.
You know, and that's why I've known you for a long time. I mean, your family and my family are friends. You're the same age as my daughter Haley, you know, and so we've known each other a long time, and I know the trials and tribulations that you went through, and I think that's great to be able to mention those things, and because it's not a perfect world. This is something I try to get across my track guys. Life ain't all sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns, man. It can be a pretty rough and tumble place, you know, and if you don't have the skills and how to manage yourself through life,
Yeah,
it's got to be pretty rough.
absolutely.
You know, so when we could come to terms with our less than great younger selves, because we were all there,
Yeah.
and now I have this opportunity year after year, you know, with these young men to help maybe guide, steer, shape, and mold them in a certain way, and just using, you know, my life experience, you know, to do that. I've just been on the planet longer, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes
I've seen a lot more, and if I can shorten that learning curve of these guys, and sometimes the gals, because I used to coach with the girls too, not so much anymore, but, you know, it's just that guiding is so important, and you know, to be able to, this is the coolest thing, so many cards, you know, letters or, you know, text messages or, you know, thanks from parents about, you know, my time with them. And I mean, that, oh my God.
Yeah.
That fills, you know, the heart up, you know, so you know you're on the right
you're doing
course,
something.
you're doing something right.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, I'm looking forward to, you know, track season coming up.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people.
Less than a month.
There's a lot of people who get older, and some people just get older, and some people get older and wiser, right? So kudos
Right.
to you for taking these experiences.
I'll drink to that.
Drink to that, right? You know, so
It's green tea. Don't worry about it.
yeah, spiked green tea.
Yeah.
So kudos to you for having those experiences and
Yeah.
learning throughout your life and being able to bless these kids. Because I mean, you know, I'm sure. Did you think when you started at Bennett that you were going to fall? Like, did you envision being a mentor, not just in sports, but being a mentor to these kids and helping them in other aspects of their life?
Maybe not initially, because in the beginning, you know, it's all. I mean, I was younger then. I kind of laughed because I was a middle-aged guy. I started late. I didn't start there until I was like 48.
Yeah.
You know, so now I'm almost 64. I started out as a middle-aged guy. Now I'm technically a senior, you know. The kids are always going to be 14 to 18, but the parents keep getting younger. So, like, my social references are falling flat because
Yep.
different generations. It's like, come on, you don't know
Yep.
Caddyshack or something?
Yeah.
Come on, you know?
Yeah.
But
I know Caddyshack, so.
yeah, well, you parents are same age as
That's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
Right, as
I
me.
run-
So yeah,
I
that's
run into
great.
that all the time. Not with Nico as much, but some of the other guys, like Ryan. You met Ryan up
Yep,
front.
yep.
You know, I'll make a reference and it'll just go.
Yep. Yeah, that's what happens. These guys look at me like, I go, what?
Yeah. Just
But
the other day.
so it's my job to keep my social references and culture alive.
You
You
gotta
know?
stay hip.
Gotta stay cool, man. It's hip to be square.
It's hip.
As
Yeah.
Huey Lewis would say.
Yep. There you go.
You know. But yeah, the whole thing in regards to you know, being this mentor, it really probably didn't matter then, or it really didn't sink in. You know, I'm trying to teach, you know, the mechanics of sprinting and hurdling and all that stuff, you know. And it's just as time has gone by, I have realized how much more important it is to dispel these lessons of life to these kids. Because look, athletic careers are going to end someday.
Yeah.
You don't know when. If it's high school, some go on to college, but not many. I've had, you know, a handful of guys and gals that have gone on to run collegiate track, but not a lot. You know, just those percentages get lower and lower.
Yeah. Each time.
But everybody's,
Each echelon.
everybody's going to go through life, though.
Yeah.
You
that's
know,
for sure.
and for a non-college educated guy, I tell him I graduated from the School of Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
Which is life,
Yeah.
you know, which is still going on. I don't think you ever really graduate from
No.
that. You know, because there's always more to learn.
Yeah,
mean-
especially if you're someone like you who seems to have this, from everything I know about you, a growth mindset, right?
Yeah.
You may not be perfect, but you,
Oh, God,
you,
no.
you seem to have this desire to continue to improve, sharpen, learn new things.
You have to, because I think it's one of those things, and you know, retirement
Yeah.
is an arbitrary word. Back in my time, when it'd be like my parents or my grandparents' generation, it was like, hey, you worked at the one company for the rest of your life, you got your gold watch, your retirement, you sit on the porch and watch the world go by.
Yeah.
It ain't like that with us baby boomers or anybody anymore. You know, if
Yeah.
you're not stimulating this, and especially stimulating the body,
Yeah.
you know, there's nothing but rotting going on, and I
Yeah.
ain't doing that.
Yeah, and if you don't stimulate the body, a lot of studies show, I think this is almost irrefutable at this point. If you don't stimulate the body, this will go too.
Yep.
You know, one of the biggest things I remember
Absolutely.
when my grandma had Parkinson's disease is, you know, they just exercise, but not at just specific types like dancing, kickboxing, even these
Yeah.
things that kind of create new grooves because you're learning sequences,
Movements.
right? But again, like without that, they're not meant to be isolated. And in many ways, I
Not in
think
any way.
that seems to be a problem in today's society. Is we're almost you're talking about, hey, you're going to go through life. You know, I can help you go through life
Right.
because the sports things. And in some ways, people are forgetting how to even be human,
Yeah.
right? You're just sitting at a desk and sitting all day long, and then you watch TV, you look down at your phone, you eat processed foods, right?
But then they got to come in here so you guys can fix their posture and everything, you know.
Yeah, nice plug.
Yeah, but that's the truth, though, because, I mean, I know the nature of work has changed greatly
Yeah.
from generationally. Just, you know, technology, computers, phones. I mean, the nature of work is just completely different, you know.
Yeah.
But the physiology of the body hasn't changed at all.
Absolutely.
So you have to find these ways to move. And not everybody's going to be, you know, a great athlete or whatever, but you don't have to be.
Yeah.
You know,
So
and
true.
it's never too late to start. Ever. Case in point, I got an older brother. Hasn't been a big exerciser, not a sports guy his whole life, but he went through some health problems just about a year ago. And I told him, look, dude, you get through this, I will train you 1 day a week. And sure enough, he has gotten through this thing, and he's getting stronger. And really, I'm just, you know, really started out pretty slow,
Yeah.
you know, with the stuff I'm doing. But now he's deadlifting, he's benching. We're trying to get him to, you know, do one complete push-up.
That's awesome.
But he can push himself up off the floor a whole bunch of times. He's getting strong. He's committed.
Yeah.
And I tell him all the time that he's one of the few people I've ever met who has had the proverbial wake-up call.
Yeah.
And he's actually done something about it.
That's awesome.
Because how many wake-up calls does a person need?
Or do they even get, right? You're lucky enough to get one sometimes.
Yeah. And are you
Right.
listening?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people just go through life and, they're not listening to these wake-up calls. And, hey, look at the statistics. I mean, the last ones I read just recently, 75% of this country overweight and obese, 40% are obese. And personally, I think it's a lot higher than that.
You might be right.
I mean, go out to a mall or a shopping store, anywhere, and
Yeah.
count how many people, and it's indicative of just the culture that's been created here in America. Whether it's big food making these cheap, inexpensive foods that taste great, but there's no nutrition in them,
Yeah.
which people crave.
And sometimes that's all certain people can afford, or at least without
Yeah.
the education that you and I both know. I'm sure you did this when you were bodybuilding in your 20s. You probably learned how to get a lot of calories for not as much, and you can do that with the
Sure.
rices and the
Yep.
oatmeals and the beans,
Yep.
right? But
Yep.
sometimes if you don't have that education, you're going to default to the cheap processed
default.
foods that have lots of calories, and maybe they'll fill you up, but
Exactly,
but
but there's
in the
no
long
nutrition in them at all. And, look, there's a lot of things that go into it, certainly socioeconomics. I mean, God, I feel the sting of how expensive groceries are. And my wife and I, we really do buy as high a quality food as we can get, because I've always looked at it. Again, I'm grateful because I have just a sports mind. I'm an athlete still. So I look at just about everything in life through athletics. And I look at the food we eat, the exercise we do, the stretching, all the maintenance work, everything. It's an investment.
yeah.
It is the greatest investment you are ever going to make in yourself. But you got to be your own self-advocate sometimes. Don't always rely on your doctor.
Yeah.
You have to sometimes actually take ownership of your own health.
Yeah,
Nobody's
so
going to do it for you.
Yeah.
And this is the great thing about my brother. I'm so proud of him. And we've actually grown closer together because of this.
That's amazing.
And I'm pushing him, man. I mean, I'm making him
bet
work.
you are.
Because he's got to look, you got to understand how hard this has to be. And I
Yeah.
think that's the other thing maybe people don't know, how hard the work actually has to be, because we've gone so far the other way with making life so freaking easy.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, though. We
Yeah.
make it so easy, we don't have to do anything anymore. We don't have to move. We don't have to think, and
Yeah.
Man.
I want to touch on that though. So, you're mentioning all these, your brother had a wake up call. He's fortunate enough that you're helping him through this, guiding him through this. One of the things that's been frustrating for me throughout my career is just when you run up against someone who just doesn't see fitness, health the same way you do, right? It breaks my heart when a client will have a season with me and then they'll go on and say, Danny, I've gotten so much out of this and I'm going to take it and I'm going to fly. I'll be the first to. I'll be cheering you on. But then when people just kind of, hey, man, I don't think this is the best use of my time. I don't know if exercise. I'll just go walk. I'll just go back to walking, or I'll just go do this. I'll do
Not
that.
enough.
So what would you say to someone? You're mentioning how it's never too late, right? What would you mention to someone who maybe fitness hasn't necessarily been something, or exercise hasn't been something that they've gravitated towards, had an affinity towards, right? And they haven't had that moment of why they should make it a part of their life. How do you explain to someone the changes that can go through you and how you can feel, and what would be the sizzle on that steak for someone who maybe is on the fence about pursuing fitness?
Yeah, I tell people you got to be selfish. And I think most of us have gone through our lives thinking, oh my God, you can't be selfish. Don't be selfish. Why are you so selfish? Use it as a bad word.
Yeah,
I mean, you
true.
say selfish, but oh my God, you can't be selfish.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Be selfish in your own self-care.
Yeah.
And so I tell people, you got to be selfish. You have to carve out the time, and you got to come up with the why.
Yeah.
Personally, for me now, I'm not training for anything.
Yeah.
I got 2 grandkids now. That's what I'm training for, because I want to be around for them.
Sorry about that.
I want to be able to pick them up, carry them around, run around on the playground, do all that stuff. And I want other people to say, holy crap, that's your grandpa?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm trying to flip that paradigm
Yeah.
where most people say, oh man, I can't keep up with my grandkids. I want my grandkids to say, oh my God, I can't keep up with grandpa. It takes a lot of work though, I'll tell you what,
Yeah.
But so again, being selfish is okay.
Yeah.
Because when you become selfish in a good way, taking care of yourself, there isn't anything else you're not going to be able to do.
Yeah.
And what is it? Do you want to travel? Do you want to be able to make it easier to, I don't know, carry groceries out of your car into your house? That takes strength.
Yeah.
So many other things. And that's the key is, and I think it's interesting because I think as trainers, we become like therapists sometimes.
Yeah.
People really start to divulge things in their lives. And I think the more, maybe as trainers, as we continue to develop these relationships, and it's so important to develop these relationships, and that's why I develop
no
these
doubt.
relationships with my coaches at Bennett and these young men. Then they start to trust you. They believe you.
Yeah.
And if you're living the life that you're talking about, and for me, living by example is huge.
Yeah.
Because I can talk about all these things, about, you need to work out, you need to eat right, and all this. But if I'm telling people that, and I'm sipping a giant Slurpee and having a Big Mac, how credible am I? And if I'm like 30 pounds overweight, not very credible.
That's true.
So it's just, that's my personal mission. I want to look the part, and it helps me feel
Practice
good.
what you preach, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's having that physical ability to do things, because man, when you're limited,
It sucks.
you think life is hard now? Just wait. One of the first guys I ever listened to for personal development was a guy named Jim Rohn.
Okay, yeah, I'm familiar.
Yeah, Jim Rohn, great guy. And he had a saying called the weight of discipline weighs ounces. The weight of regret weighs tons. So how much regret are you going to have because, hey, you didn't pick this day to go work out, or this day you didn't choose to, eat better from a nutrition standpoint. It's just the pain and the suffering that is going on. And I have family members and friends that are suffering greatly. And you can see the decline, in these people. And it's sad. But sometimes there's not a lot you can do.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be honest. I know my brother is very worried about his girlfriend, and because she's not doing much. She's a little bit older than he is, but she doesn't do anything but sit on the couch all day.
Yeah.
And man, you can just see it happening.
Yeah.
And he has confided in me. It's like, I don't know what to do. It's like, bro, all you can do is encourage and lead by example.
Lead by example.
That's all you can do. But you're not. So in this world that we're in, trying to help people, we're not going to be able to help everybody.
That's true.
And we can encourage, we can surely inspire. We don't motivate. I'll personally say it about me.
Yeah.
I don't motivate anybody.
Yeah.
I think motivation is a self-generated thing.
Yeah.
If by virtue of what we say and do encourages or inspires somebody to motivate them, awesome.
Yeah.
But we're not going to be able to do that with everybody. It won't happen.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier the why, right?
Yeah.
So if they don't have that why, there's really no amount of persuasion, coercion, whatever. It's just not going to happen. There has to be some reason for them that means enough to change direction.
Correct.
Right? And it can be frustrating, right? But to your point, there's really not much you can do.
No.
And I love what you said about the selfishness thing, because it actually reminds me of the owner of the gym here, Mike.
Yeah.
He has this analogy of, when people, because that is a thing. People say, especially I notice it in women who, not the lifeboat. That's a good one too, though. But especially women who have had children, they're so used to kind of giving and giving and giving, right? It almost feels wrong to kind of prioritize themselves. And so basically what he said is when you're on an airplane, one of the first things they tell you to do is in a crash, you have to put on your mask first. Right? And that's kind of what you're talking about is if selfish, right? But there's positives. Serving yourself and your goals and your vision that are pure is different than you basically just being a jerk, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so your selfishness can actually translate to you being able to be a blessing on other people, being more generous with if you're selfish and take care of yourself, when your kid needs help moving out of college, you can help them move out of college versus paying someone to do it or telling him he just needs to figure it out with his friends. So, if you take care of yourself, you can give more to others, right? And I love hearing you say that. And when he said that, I go, yeah, that's so true. You got to put your own mask on first. But again, bringing it all full circle, if you personally don't have that why, then there's only so much you can do.
Yeah, we're all limited with it.
So
our minds, that's where the battles are won and lost all the time anyway. Is up here. And it's difficult to change. Trust me. I know from experience. It is some of the hardest work you'll ever do in trying to change yourself in whatever way that it is, physically, mentally. And sometimes that's why people stay sick and miserable, because it's comfortable. And it's too hard or maybe too scary to change myself. Trust me, I've looked myself in the mirror sometimes like, don't like that. Self-talk, or thinking or talking through a problem that you have, or maybe you've been acting a certain way, and it's like, man, I don't really like that, But to dig deep and figure out those reasons why, that could be some scary shit. And that's why some people, I think, don't change, again, whether it's a physical thing or a mental thing, and emotions play into, oh my God, so many things, because I think a lot of it is, past experiences, I'm a big believer in we are who we are because of how we've been raised and the life experiences that happen to us. But life happens to everybody. It's how you deal with it is the biggest issue. So if something bad happens and it's like, well, the easiest thing to do, I will start drinking. Or smoking, get tobacco, or maybe I'll start on prescription drugs, or I think the biggest offender right now is food. Food is the biggest offender of all, because it's easy. It's legal, and it satisfies, people's emotions.
That's an underrated concept, right? People, when you do a little research on just dopamine, right? And just how much these phones, food, people don't realize that sometimes when you're eating at the end of the day, and a lot of people talk about that, right? I snack too much at night, and that's maybe why I go over on my calories and I'm having a hard time losing weight. And, I've had many clients where, you mentioned scary stuff, and like when you kind of dive deeper in, they may be doing that because they're unhappy. Right? They're in a job. They're in a job they don't like. There's struggles in their personal lives, and that whatever they're eating at the end of the night isn't just about sustenance. It's about this is a part of my day that I can feel good about myself. Right?
And it's so easy to do. And the physical stuff, doing the right things is the harder path. There's no question. With the exercise you got to have, the nutritious food you got to have. And right now, it's around Christmas time. Between Thanksgiving and New Year's, people are going hog wild on drinking and food. Oh, I deserve it. It's the holidays, blah, blah, blah. You can to a certain point, but how many people are going to have a ton of regrets in about a few weeks? Well,
it's also funny how people sometimes act as if it's like it's this hurricane that's coming, and there's just no way they could possibly avoid it. It's like, well, the holidays. It's
it's the holiday. It's the hurricane, the holiday hurricane.
Yeah. It's like, who's putting the gun to your head making you eat all the cookies?
Yeah, nobody.
And trust me, I've been there too, right? But it's just funny how it's like, oh, here we go. It's like, well, we do have a choice in that, right? And so, you mentioned earlier that, bodybuilding was one of the biggest things that kind of got you started on this path, right?
It was.
And so not a lot of, I would just love to understand, there's a lot I'd love to understand about you, but I would love to understand.
We only have so much time,
We
Danny.
only have so much time, so I'll have to have you back
Nico's
on.
going to fall asleep after. I was like, Jesus, 8 hours, come on.
Yeah, exactly. I just
How many episodes is this?
I just kept canceling clients. 2:30, 3:30, right?
We're in a deep dive, man.
Yeah, but what is it about, like, if you could go through your whole bodybuilding experience and then look back, what were some of the things you learned about bodybuilding, about yourself through that experience?
Is how hard you can push yourself. Because that's what I was lacking. It's like I think in my earlier days when I did not have that mental maturity, and it's like, what if you really put your whole body and soul into something? And bodybuilding was it. And it's like, what if I really dedicated myself? So I was 25, 26 when that moment started.
Yeah.
And within 3 years or so, I went from 160 to 195, and it was clean. No drugs, barely any supplements, just a hard-ass work and a lot of food.
A lot of food.
The formula
Speaking of
wasn't
food.
hard, but the application, and I think that's what people have a problem with, is the application. You actually have to put in the work.
Yeah.
Now, I overtrained like hell. I mean, I was a natural bodybuilder. I got a great friendship out of it. This friend of mine, Steve, we're still good friends today. We become training partners, and and again, we're reading, Muscle and Fitness and Flex Magazine and Arnold's Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding, but we were all natural, and we're trying to copy, 3 days on a day, the split routines. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Had this conversation with a good friend of mine, Ray McGurry, who
definitely.
We still get together and chat and starting to work out a little bit. But
Speaking of giants.
Yeah.
Whole family.
Awesome dude, man. Yeah. But we were talking about that the other day as we go back in time and what you could fix. And it's like, man, I overtrained like crazy.
Yeah.
I got big, but I probably could have done it a lot smarter.
Yeah.
And of course I got hurt. I tore my labrum of my left shoulder.
Okay.
Didn't really take care of it, just rested it for a week. And then, next week, get back at it,
Yeah. Rub some dirt on it.
Yeah, rub some dirt on it, Johnny. Come on. But I got super arthritic over time. I had a huge bone spur in there, and I actually had a partial replacement.
Was that at Eco Gym days? I feel like I remember you coming in
No, it was
around
way
that time.
before that.
Okay.
Yeah, it was, geez, late 80s probably.
Why do I
when
feel
that
like
happened.
I remember you were working out at Eco Gym back when I was there, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever have an injury then?
No.
Okay, so
no.
I'm misremembering.
It was still probably ongoing at that time. And then it's been about 10 years I had that partial replacement. No, partial. It wasn't a full.
Okay.
My orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Greg Markarian, worked with this company called Arthrosurface. And he goes, boy, you think you're limited now? Wait till you get a total shoulder. You're not going to be able to do jack squat.
Yeah.
And with as active as I was only 54 or so at the time, So basically, this procedure was clean the bone spur out, and they got this, they call it a hemicap, and it's basically they screw it into my humerus. It's about 40 millimeters in diameter. It's pretty big.
Wow.
If you see the pictures, it looks like it's photoshopped.
Yeah,
it doesn't
yeah.
even look real. It's like, is
Yeah.
that real? It's like,
Yeah.
But man, it gave me my life back. I'm not limited by anything. I can still lift pretty heavy. I got great movement, with my shoulder, because it used to stop here.
Wow.
It was bad.
Yeah.
And went through a lot of therapy, which I still do today. That's another thing I try to get people to understand. Once you go through physical therapy or whatever, you got to keep doing those things, because if you don't,
Or at least build off of it in some way, shape, or form.
because otherwise it's going to be worse.
Well, and that's a good example of what you were talking about earlier, that there are sometimes things you can't do something about without some sort of fix, right?
Yep.
And so in this case, you had all the desire to do the work and to challenge yourself,
Yes.
but you ran up against a wall with your shoulder.
Yeah.
So is a time that getting that joint replacement or whatever that thing is
Yep.
that you need, but at the end of the day, that still will have to be either preceded or followed up with
Yep.
getting back to work.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it is. It's just, and that's the work. And that was the thing with bodybuilding. I mean, it was really hard. I mean, you look at a weight, I mean, you're trying to go up in weight, and it's like, man, can I do it? I don't know. Only one way to find out.
Yeah.
And, you know, the weights start getting bigger and heavier, and, you know, I got bigger, and it was like, wow, this is really cool.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's hard.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the thing, getting back to how little work that we're putting in now, especially from a physical standpoint. You know, this is the greatest thing that's ever been created.
Yeah.
The human body, better than, you know, the phones or anything technology is going to be created. This is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
And it's only going to take so much abuse, though.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you know, most people in this country abuse the living crap out of it. And, you know, everything has life expectancy, you know, but you can extend it as much as you can, but you gotta put the work in. I mean, there's no way around it.
Yeah. But I love what you're talking about. There's this sweet spot between working hard,
Yeah.
but also now in hindsight, I could have worked smarter, right? That's what
Way
you're saying.
smarter.
Right?
Oh
And
my
so
God.
there's obviously plenty of people out there, whether they're in their 20s or whether they're in their 30s and 40s and so on,
Right.
who either, whether it just be for aesthetics, want to build muscle, or to some of the points you were talking about earlier, just being, you know, they heard from their doctor, or, you know, read some sort of article that, you
Right.
know, to increase your longevity and your quality of life as you age, you know, muscle is going to be essential to that, right?
Correct.
So knowing that that's something everyone is interested in,
Yeah.
what would be some of your biggest learning experiences, right? Because you have the one side of it where you're just grinding and grinding and grinding,
Yeah.
right? But if you could do that all again, or kind of pack it, you know, tell people, hey, how you could have been more efficient. What are some of the things that stand out to you?
Yeah, I think the rest is really important, you know, and this is something I talk about even with my track athletes. I mean, you got to stimulate everything, and that's the impetus for the growth, but it's through, you know, proper nutrition and rest, whether it's, you know, naps during the day, but specifically sleep at night. That's when things regenerate themselves and grow, because you're breaking your muscles down ever so, you know, microscopically.
Yeah.
But you got to put in the right fuel. And I've always looked at food just as fuel.
Yeah.
And then I try to get people to look at food a little bit more like that. I mean, you can't run, you know, nitromethane dragster on pump gas. Ain't gonna work.
No.
You know, just depends on how much of a high performance machine you want to be. But if you're eating the right stuff and you're getting good sleep, you're going to be feeling a heck of a lot better. And with that strength component, you touched on it, Danny, that is the most important thing, is the strength, because sarcopenia, again, the scientific word for age-related weight, you know, or muscle loss,
Yeah.
really bad.
Yeah.
And people get stuck on the scale.
Yeah.
It ain't just the scale, man. What's the percentage, you know, of skeletal muscle mass that you have, you know? And people talk about, oh, I've lost 10 pounds. Well, is it 10 pounds of water, 10 pounds of fat? Is it 10 pounds of muscle? I don't know.
Yeah, there's a quote every once in a while. There's a really amazing quote on the board up there that I think you'll love. Nico, tell me if I'm wrong here, but it's basically something like,
He probably will be, right?
if you think lifting is scary, try being weak,
Oh, I love that. That's
Right?
a T-shirt right there.
right? Because
That's great.
some person might read that and be like, think of some.
Yeah.
Try being weak,
Right,
right?
right, right.
But I think the wisdom that is not, hey, try being, you know, if you can't
That's
bench
great.
315 pounds, then that means you're weak. It's like, no, just
Heck
try
no.
being in a position, like you were mentioning earlier,
Yep.
that you're starting to not be able to do the things you want to do.
Yeah.
Right? That's one of the things, thanks, Nico.
It's horrible.
My tablet broke, guys, and I'm doing my best here. So, but one of the things I'll talk about sometimes with my older clients is,
Yeah.
you know, and I love talking to some of my older clients who have that fire in them, like you know, who just aren't ready to. They've got the fight in them.
Hell
and
no.
they're not, but it's this idea that every once in a while there are going to be things that you have to make concessions on, right?
Absolutely.
But as you age, it's like you start off with this huge sphere, right, of what you're capable of doing,
right,
what you're empowered to do in your life, right? And the tendency as you age is for that to shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink. And some people just let it happen.
Yep.
Right? Whether they're conscious or subconsciously doing that.
Yep.
And other people fight tooth and nail to try to hang on to being able to do all the things they want to do.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I've seen with fitness, especially as it relates to people who are getting older, is the amount of control, just that feeling of control that you have in your life, that you know, as you're getting older and so many things are changing and so many things seem outside of your control, and I'm in the fall or the winter of my life, you know, and but to have this thing like fitness and exercise, strength training, to be able to say, this is something I can control. This is something I can do to enhance my quality of life, to fight for the things that are important to me, whether or not that be playing with the grandkids or whatever, being able
whatever
to just
it is
do
that you
yard
wanna
work,
do.
right? And pick up mulch or pick up grocery bags, right?
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
So, but yeah, you know, you mentioned that, kind of bringing it back to the bodybuilding, and what was some of your programming like? I mean, I know you said, you know, you'd train each muscle group in a particular way, but again, kind of going in hindsight, what is more of your split that you would recommend to people nowadays who are just looking to just generally build muscle?
You know, and that's the main focus is muscle. I mean, I don't talk about cardio with anybody. You know, again, it's just that muscle mass is so critically important because it helps us move. You know, helps us run, jump, walk, whatever, prevent a fall. Come on, that's one of the biggest things you got to do as you get older. And I say older, not old. If you say you're old, what do you think's going to happen?
Just it's everything follows suit, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're all going to get older, but how gracefully do you want to do it?
Yeah.
You know, I think that is critically important. And to your point, we do control it.
Yeah.
But the first thing you got to control is your mind. And you have to, again, get to that place. And it's like getting in state.
Yeah.
And like I tell my track guys, like, I cannot tell you how to prepare. I can tell you the drills and this and that, but I can't mentally. I used to have a kid years ago, a really great sprinter. He needed to be really chill and mellow. He used to listen to Bob Marley music.
Yeah.
But are you a guy that's got to be like, you know?
Yeah.
Karsten Warholm, he's the world record holder in the 400 hurdles. You know, he's an Olympic gold medalist, multi-world champion from Norway. He's like, you know. But not everybody's going to do that. Usain Bolt, you know, before he was so chill and mellow. He's laughing, having a good time. And, you know, you got to find what works for you up here. Yeah. But not everybody's the same.
Yeah.
You know, for me, I know I got to do the things I got to do, like from a workout standpoint. Man, I'm pretty focused. I got the heavy metal going.
Nice.
That's just me.
Yeah.
You know, but not everybody's like that, you know. So it's the same thing, like through the conversations we have with clients. It's like you can start to figure out, what might trigger this person? You know, what are the things that I could say, you know, to get this person, to inspire them, encourage them, to get them motivated, to do the things that you want them to do. You know, and sometimes it's being able to do that, and that takes skill. You know, that's the artful skill of understanding people, how to communicate. That's a beautiful art, you know, communication. I've been through Toastmasters, and, you know, I do some public speaking and things like that. So, but there's always that school of life that we're learning from. But to help yourself, sure. But how can I help other people, you know, get to where they need to go, you know? So to be able to find that little thing to get them motivated enough to keep coming back.
Yeah.
You know, and to absorb the things that you have. That's the trickiest part, I would say, for trainers, is trying to do it, but build the relationships. And sometimes that takes time.
Yeah.
You know, it takes a long time for them to to trust you. They have to like you as well.
Well, I'm screwed.
Yeah, oh boy. Hang it up. That's all over. All right, Nico, you're taking over, man.
You need to be likable? Oh, shoot.
We'll work on that, okay?
Thank you.
But the resistance training is just way too important, especially as we get older. That's the foundational stuff you need. I mean, you need to have a great foundation. It's like a house.
Yeah.
Or body work on a car. You can have the greatest paint in the world, but if your body work sucks, you're going to see every imperfection. If you have a lousy foundation of your home, it's probably just going to fall down. You got to build strength. And it's not circuit training. Been helping out some other family members and some friends.
Yeah.
Trying to, steer them in a direction. So, I've been working out. I don't like the way I look here. This, all this. I was like, well, through analysis, you got to change things,
Yeah.
So it's like lifting heavier. And this is what has to happen. You got to lift heavier, maybe fewer reps, and a lot more rest. But it's contradictory to a lot of things out there. I mean, circuit training,
Yeah.
If you truly want to get stronger, it's lifting heavy shit, lower reps, and a lot of rest.
And a lot of rest. Like, let's get back out there.
Because like sprinting, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
My group is not based on endurance. We're intensity.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
We go for really short spurts, but really intense. But we don't do a lot of it. Our volume is very low.
Yeah.
But it works. If you want to get faster, if you want to get stronger, you got to follow that formula.
Yeah.
Hey, whatever people can do to get started, hey, and if it's somebody who has never worked out, maybe walking is enough.
Yeah.
To start.
Yeah.
But it's never going to be enough.
Yeah.
But you got to get people started somehow, but ultimately it has to move into that kind of weight training, and eating more.
Yeah.
Specifically more protein. I've been reading this book by Dr. Gabrielle Lyon called Forever Strong. It's great. It's something I've always preached about, getting more protein, but especially the lifting.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of a different paradigm, especially as we get older. It's like, I'm not as hungry. I shouldn't eat as much. But that's what everybody's been being taught.
Yeah.
Now we're finding out, that's not what should be happening. You should be eating more, specifically more, protein. And, you can go in all different derivatives, plant-based, animal-based. I still eat meat. And, it works for me,
Yeah.
But it's trying to get people to take that action, just to get started. Yeah. Getting started is the hardest part, I think, as you guys know.
There's no doubt.
Getting people to get started. But once you get going, I think that's the only thing I've been consistent.
Yeah.
I've been consistent.
Yeah.
And I've never stopped. And I've been grateful for finally getting that little fire going.
Yeah.
During those formative years in the middle 80s there, when I was in my 20s, and bodybuilding gave me that foundation. And then now here I am to be able to, and still going at it as hard as I can, and to be able to, again, to hopefully inspire people, whether it's, and I want to look the part.
Well, too. Brian, you inspire me, man.
Well, I appreciate that, man.
I mean, you were,
Thanks.
I don't know if you remember this, but when I was like 14 or something, you came over and did like a consultation, if you will, of like, hey, my dad buys this new nice piece of at-home equipment, and Brian comes over to check it out, let us know how we could use it. And so as we were catching up, kind of leading up to this podcast, I thought to myself, holy shit, I didn't even think about the fact that Brian is my first introduction to fitness, and I never, hold on. I never even thought of that.
Wow.
I mean, back in the day, we called this guy, and I still do, Captain Six-Pack. I mean, you
still got it.
I love your
passion. Should we show everybody?
Yeah, let's do it.
Still got it.
Hey, we got to do it. There we go.
Let's go.
Woo! Yeah, there we go, dude. So speaking of being inspiration, man, you inspire
appreciate
me.
that.
I love
That's
your
very
passion,
nice.
and thank you so much for coming on. This was one of the fastest hours of my life, and we'll have to
Well, I
have
am
you
quick.
back on. You are Brian Quick. On that note, thank you so much, Brian.
It's been a great pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks, Danny.
Awesome.